Hello all, Series Thieves here, back with some more tips and tricks, and today is all about figuring frigate fuel. So be warned, there's some math involved. Maths, if you're the kind of person who short forms a word and then puts a S on the end anyway. Yeah, we got to do math today. So we need to look at the frigate fleet, we need to look at our frigates, we need to talk about some numbers. You might want to have a calculator or pen and paper nearby because I'm too time consumed to do editing on my videos. So what we need to do is talk about the numbers, and maybe we'll look at them here in a second on the frigate fleet. One of the numbers we need to talk about today, actually before we go into the frigate fleet, first number we need to talk about today is frigate fuel itself. Let's look at our inventory. That's why I went to the inventory. I have some frigate fuel here on the freighter. I'm generating frigate fuel for free by my stats. We've gone over how to get further than fully free frigate missions before. And I'm doing that on this save as well. But let's look at these numbers for a second. We're talking about the math of frigate fuel today, not necessarily how to get your frigate missions free. That video should still be appropriate. It's not out of date. It's old, but it still works because I'm doing it here. Okay, so frigate fuel, the minimum quantity you can get in a single unit. If we reduce this all the way, down to, how do you reduce these numbers? Quick split is that. I just wanted to reduce it one at a time. Anyway, one of those. So we have 50 tons of fuel in a single unit. That's the minimum quantity of fuel. We can also get 100 tons of fuel in a single unit or 200 tons. These are our minimum units. When you craft frigate fuel, the smallest amount you can make is 50, and when you spend frigate fuel, the smallest amount you can spend is 50. So, when we're doing our frigate fuel calculations, we will not be using 50s, but the game will round up to the nearest 50 when calculating your fuel costs. So that's the first thing you need to keep in mind. If your frigate mission is going to cost you 2 fuel, it's going to cost you 50 fuel. It's always going to round up to the nearest 50. That's why you only get to see missions that cost 100 fuel, 200 fuel, 250, 300 fuel. That's why you're seeing it always in quantities of 50s. The second number that we want to talk about today is 250. And you'd think that all of these numbers would go nicely into each other, but like I said, they don't, because we don't round frigate fuel until the cost comes into effect. 250 is the number we need to look at when we're going in to calculate how much fuel we're going to be spending. So you don't need to look at the time. The time is going to change depending on the modules you have installed on your freighter. If you have any of these, expedition speed, you will get very good bonuses to the time, but the thing that will not change when you install those is the lightyear distance. So this will always say 2530, this will always say 4716, when these specific missions come up. Every day these change, the light years change. This one here is really nice because it's just under 1,000, so we can round this up to 1,000 and divide by 250 to get 4. We need to calculate how many 250s fit into the light year range of our missions here. Now I have a calculator nearby and I've already done these two. So round it up to the nearest 250, so 4750, and then divide that by 250 and we will get 19. Up here, we need to round this all the way up to 2750 because that's over 2500. That's 2500 would have been nice. That's a very simple 10. But this is an 11. It's 1 over, so we can divide 2750 by 250 and get 11. Here we'll get a 19. Here we'll get a 4. We need to keep these numbers in mind for our missions today. Now let's look at some frigates. And remember that 250 number. Here's where we get the 250 number. We'll go to any of our frigates here. Here's a combat frigate. This right here is where we get the 250 number. Now this number here will change depending on the modules you have installed on your freighter here, specifically these ones, expedition efficiency modules, and especially if you put the 3 that you're allowed to have in 3 of your super slots, which is why I would recommend, if you want to get fully free fuel missions for frigates, you want an A class at least, if not an S. I have found S classes that cannot get this reduction down to what we just saw at 1 ton per 250. And that's what we're going for with fully free missions. You want all of your frigates to only cost 1 ton. That's also significantly going to help the math we need to do next. We've already done our calculations of how many 250s fit into the distances we have to find. Now we have to figure out how much fuel this is going to cost us to send this ship on any of those missions. So we had a 4, we had an 11, and we had a 19. We multiply this number here, whatever your number is. If it's 4, if it's 6, if it's 8 tons of fuel per 250, you multiply this number here by the number we found out from the distance of the mission. So let's say by 4, 1 times 4 is 4. This mission, if I send this ship out, will cost 4 tons of fuel. That's it, just 4 tons. Round it up to 50. So if I were to go to send this ship on a mission, it would cost 50 tons of fuel, no matter basically which mission, except this ship here has minuses, -6, -6, -6. This is a really amazing combat ship. These are very rare on ships that are not support ships. So we have minuses to fuel. Now if we were to send this on the 1,000 light year mission, it only costs 4 tons of fuel, but we have -4 right there, so this would cost 0 tons of fuel. However, because we have further than 0, we would go into the negatives, and sending this ship by itself on that 1,000 light year mission will generate us 50 tons of fuel, because we are between -1 and -50. If we were to go over -50 with however many ships we send with these modules, we would actually gain 100 tons of fuel for sending it on those missions. Just out of thin air, fuel just put into our inventory for sending this on a mission. So this is what these do. We multiply this by how many light years, by how many 250s we need to go, and then we directly take that number and subtract all of these from it. And if there's any left over, these apply to your other ships that you send on that mission. So for example, if I were to go to, say, this trade vessel here, it's a C class, it only has 15 trading, it has no minuses to fuel, but it does also only cost 1 ton of fuel per 250. So if I were to send this ship and that combat ship on the 1,000 light year mission, it would still be free. I would still generate fuel, because I would be at a cost total of 8 tons of fuel. 4 for this one, 4 for the combat, and we are minusing 16 from that combat ship. If we go to the combat ship, here it is, -4, -10, -16 total. So we could send multiple ships with that -16 and not cost us any fuel. Now, if each of these ships cost 4 fuel per 250 light years, we would do the math and say that this ship by itself would cost 16 tons of fuel to send on that 1,000 light year mission. It would still be free, but the other ship wouldn't. That mission would cost me 50 tons of fuel, because the other ship would also cost me 16 tons of fuel to go on a 1,000 light year mission. And that would round up to 50. So that's how we do the math. Let's do an example by sending a mission. Let's see if I can guess. Now, the downside of the gaining fuel is that it'll never tell you that you're going to gain fuel, and it won't tell you how much you're going to gain. So if we want to predict how much fuel we need to gain, we're going to gain, we need to go here, and we need to either sell or delete these, or just keep track of how many we've got. 28 only stacks to 20, so we will gain in this one if we gain 50s. We'll gain more than 9 if we gain 100, and it's pretty rare that I'm going to gain 200 units of fuel in a single mission, but apparently I have, because I have never crafted any fuel on this save. So I have sent out missions that have gained me 200 fuel. 4 times apparently. 4 times I've done that. All right, so the easiest place for me to gain fuel will be on the shortest mission because I have ships that give huge bonuses to fuel cost reduction because most of my ships are support ships. I've gone through and I've kept the procedural names but added the fuel cost reduction and the mission duration reduction of time, how long the mission takes, to the names of them. I've also gone and truncated the front parts where it says like DSVM ship this. That's just excess. I put an asterisk there if it is still leveling up. When a frigate gets to 55 missions, it will reach its maximum stats. These are the max stats this will ever get to, and I can take the asterisks off. It will also never gain any more modules to increase its fuel reduction or any of the other bonuses it gets after it hits S-Class. But these are all locked in because they're S-Class. Look, 33 to fuel. This ship could cover a lot of ships. So on a 1-hour mission, if we send this and this and a couple of 30s, so that's 156 minus to our fuel on a mission that is going to cost us 420. So we are going to gain 100 units of fuel for sending this mission. That's my prediction. I don't necessarily want to send these ships. That one's not even leveling up anymore. Let's go back in here, take that one out. That one's leveling up. There we go. And it should still be the same. It's 153 now that we're minusing to our fuel costs, and the fuel cost is still just 20 because each of these only cost 1, and we're going, I want to say 4 light years. It's 4 sets of 250 light years. We're going 4 and each of them only costs 1 per 250. So 4, 8, 12, 16, 20 tons of fuel total minus 150. That's 133 excess fuel reduction that we're sending. So we should gain, what were we at? Let's back out. I think we were at 9. 9 of these. We should see this hit 10 when we send that out. Let's see if that happens. 2-hour mission, 1,000 light years. Let's pick our ships that all give 30. That's a nice name. There we go. We'll send that away. Hit launch. You can see down in the bottom corner, it cost us 0 fuel. It just was a dash. It said 0, no fuel. But if we go in here, we're now at 10. We just gained 100 fuel out of thin air. And we predicted it with math. Magical math. It's not fun, but this is how the math works on frigate missions. Hopefully this was helpful for you predicting your costs. Once again, definitely get your fleet upgraded so that you can get ships that only cost 1 ton of fuel. Something that if you have access to is very helpful for determining if your freighter with the upgrades installed will ever get your ships down to 1 ton of fuel per 250 and you've done all your expeditions in the past, is that the specialty ships, the Normandy and the Leviathan, both will get down to 1 ton of fuel if you have your proper freighter, and the freighter stats excuse me, are here. You're going to want something with about 55. You're going to want a ship that has at least 55. I've seen S-class freighters with 55 with 3 of these installed that still did not get my Normandy down to 1 ton of fuel per 250. So I went and I sold that S-class, found another S-class, and it did. Not every freighter is created the same. There are hidden statistics that we can't see that help you determine your total fleet coordination and help determine your innate fuel reduction stats. And you're going to want one with a high stat, and we can't see that. We need to get into the code to see that. You would need some sort of file save editor to see those things, and I don't have that access. I just go around finding S-class frigates, and usually S-class frigates will have 3 near each other that you can put them on and get really good bonuses to get it down to 1 ton of fuel. But If you're not seeing frigates when you're shopping that are down to 1 ton of fuel and you have all 3 modules installed, you might want to make sure to upgrade your modules. If I move this over here off of a super slot, fleet fuel modules range from 15 at S-class. You can get an S-class fleet fuel expedition efficiency module, and it will only be 15%, not 20%. You can get an S-class that's 16, 17, 18, 19%, or 20%. 20 is the maximum you can get from an S-class module for these. You might want to try to find a ship that gives you, a derelict ship that gives you 20% modules, because not all of freighters are created the same. So you might need that extra push to get you down to that low cost and help your math be that much easier, because who can't multiply by 1? Multiplying by 1 is easy. But when your ships cost 3 or 4 or 6 tons of fuel each, doing this math can be pretty tricky. You're going to want a calculator, or you're just going to want to not do it and make so much fuel you don't need to do math at all. But I don't like grinding for fuel. So that's one of the reasons I did a bit of math on these saves, and I'm sharing that math with you now, how to calculate your frigate fuel costs. And that's it for today, everybody. Until next time, have a good time.